The Masked Firefighter was created by Juan Vito, and so far it already has a web series being made and was a part of a big event with national heroes. I had to rewrite this review, and I'm glad to say it was for the best of reasons. Basically, when I posted a preview of my Moonbullet video on Instagram, the Masked Firefighter's profile asked me to review their game, which I did. And as I mentioned I had already written a review of his origin story, they sent me a digital copy of the stories with the character that had been published so far. And I was not particularly positive in that review. I made sure to talk about the author's initial attitudes towards the audience, and they still wanted me to talk more, and gave me digital versions of the comics. I wasn't even going to make this review until after the bigger one that's coming, but this kind of attitude deserves to be rewarded. And at least in my copy, that page where he talked about the audience is no longer there. So I'll have to delay the review about Monster Girls. But I'm still going to do it. But it's not about Monster Musume yet. But we'll get there eventually. Hey, how did you get into my house? Well, I remember seeing a video presentation for their universe in an event and thinking it was a little discouraging because it was a pretty empty video, just some images and some effects. But ever since, they seem to have gotten much better. As we're going to see, the visuals started very amateurish, but you can see some improvement. We're still a bit far from professional, but at least most of the stories were fun, and some of the mistakes I'll be talking about didn't show up again, even if they weren't perfect. I still can't trust that everything is going to work, especially in light of the web series.
É o quê?
I know that an amateur sometimes needs to do things in less than ideal circumstances. Just see some of the videos on my channel.
So the other stage?
But there's a difference between having lesser quality visuals as they are and having animatic quality sounds or calling a 2-minute video an episode.
Mas que legal.
This could have been an introduction and it wouldn't have been that bad. Of course, they should re-record the audio for Tyson, but between title and credits, we only have 2 minutes. We have a reasonable establishment of the place, a conversation suggesting how Tyson and the Masked Firefighter's relationship works, and a quick demonstration of his power. It's just that, just so you have an idea, the video has 1.5 minutes of credits and ads in the end. So it's as if we were watching Knights of the Zodiac during the Battle of the 12 Temples, but the summary was all ads, and the commercials were the episodes. That's my biggest fear with the Masked Firefighter. They seem to be stretching.
Até os índices de assalto diminuíram.
And the more you stretch, the bigger the chance the host can be seen. If this were the beginning of the first episodes, released early, everyone would see it as a sneak peek. But, as it's presented as an episode, it's hard not to criticize. And I can honestly say that there are good ideas here. Or do you think I took the fire transition and the camera transition for nothing? Unfortunately, I can already say that his origin story is much better than this. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Hi beautiful people and welcome to another feeling around the dark room that is my mind. As with every work that I think deserves to be read, I'll leave the spoilers towards the end of the review. But immediately, I have to talk about one of the biggest problems the comic has. The art is incredibly amateur. There are errors here that most artists would see as basic, and they happen often. This is not a comic you should buy for the visual art. As a failed art student that I am, and an appreciator that's limited, and failed as I am, this isn't that important to me. There are things that aren't exactly in vogue, but that doesn't mean they lack quality. Having drawings this way makes for a more direct communication, and this works for this comic. It's not different from naive art, for instance. It works to make a scene without complicating it and focusing on the activity shown, but not for something more subtle. Or for a TV example, does anybody remember The Head? That cartoon has been attacked for its visual quality, but the story itself isn't bad. When the first arc ends, then they completely lose it and it's clear why the cartoon didn't continue. But on that arc, the weirdness of the cartoon helps the absurd situation. And of course, the woman with gigantic eyes isn't necessarily a mutant because of them, but an expressionist version of how someone might see her with her eyes being bigger than most. I'm not really sure, but I think that helped accepting a reality where that head still goes through doors and doesn't break the guy's neck immediately.
Let the shoulders do more.
Here, the same happens. If you take in the image as less descriptive and more expressionist, many moments have more impact. And personally, I can forgive an oddly proportioned body in this context a lot more than something intentionally lipophilic. Another issue the comic has is that the story has some problems. Nothing too big, but storytelling mistakes that might be seen as basic as well. The biggest one is a tendency to leave things incomplete or underdeveloped, almost as if using a trope to then turn to the reader and say, you know. It doesn't kill the story in my opinion, but it can be distracting. And when you want people to take your story seriously, you can't let them get distracted. For instance, when he is going to use his equipment for the first time, we have a total of 1 panel to explain it all. 2 if you want to count this one where the suit is sideways, but the author is backing up a truck and almost burying the reader in information. When the story goes into action, it gets much better. I'd even say that the beginning is not bad for this kind of story, but some pieces are noticeably too dense or too light if compared to the rest. It's almost as if the author were watching a video of someone walking in a city and pressing fast forward on the parts he feels are necessary but not as fun. Dude, what a beautiful part. You can almost feel the fresh air on your lung. Wait, where are you going? Museum?
Wiggle your big toe.
Again, I feel the story is interesting enough to be read, and even the worst flaws don't feel like laziness, but amateurishness. I sincerely think that it's fun and more deserving of attention than other things I've read. So, I would say take a look before watching the rest. It could be interesting. From now on, it's a bird! It's a plane! No, it's a commercial. We start near the Brazilian coast, where an engineer finds a sunken submarine, recovering a safe from it. Going back to the ship, we see the engineer's boss works for a serviceman who says the president keeps asking about the project. You'll have to finish this project already, damn it! I wanna be the Red Skull, damn it! And yes, in case you're not from Brazil, this is one of those parts of history that is still discussed to this day. Brazil would have gone into World War II after a ship having been torpedoed by a German submarine. Some say this is virtually impossible and logically improbable, while others say the Nazis were just so sure of their victory they just kept widening their attempts to conquer the world. The only thing everyone probably agrees with is that David Will and Jordan Peele made corn syrup scary as hell, and Brazilian Nazis were very dumb, thinking they could become German somehow. It's like if you said that you are in the ABC Skinheads because you were beating people down in Niterói.
It's not the sign.
Stop! Stop! He's already dead.
Turn the page and we have a firefighter trying to save a victim from a building right before being buried by a landslide. And here the art fails. It took me a while to see that this young-looking girl was the old lady that came out of the debris. This is why I say you shouldn't buy this comic for the visuals. The fact that the pages where we see the landslide still have a panel of the serviceman talking, yeah, it's a bit of a noise. The fact that the 2 occurrences are unrelated is somewhat noticeable, yes. But a person changing their appearance drastically from one panel to the next, it's a real problem. Turn the page and we have Patricia, which was Patricilla in the beginning and will be again, as well as the servicemen arriving with the vice president, where they ordered the chief engineer be dismissed from the meeting to keep secrecy, with that indispensable touch of prejudice coming from them. Of course you're not supposed to have some day worker here. I already did you a favor by having a woman fetch things for me while I'm taking a nap back at the office. You're just jealous of this. And the meeting goes on with the doctor explaining the details of the project to the general, the vice president, and a representative of a company that invested in the project. He talks about being able to use the project to heal almost anything, until the vice president says she wants to know about the Ubers, which the general explained are super soldiers, maybe capable of making even the most powerful witches tremble. Turfus Holicus! And then, the doctor says they never told him about this. In other words, he is the specialist or doctor who might make the project work. He's only talking about healing, and the government knows how to make super soldiers. How? How did Jair Goldenshauer know there'd be this possibility? No, I swear I don't. It's like if I said taking vitamin C is good for a cough, and he assumed his lungs would mutate and he would become a villain from the kids next door. And I swear I had already written this before the little cough comment. The project is mine, so I decide to end it all and destroy everything I've done so far. And he shows he used the project on himself and can grow blades out of his arms.
What the fuck is that?
The doctor decides to dismantle the project, the ones interested say they have to stop him, and the general takes charge. For us to go from Petro C to the Petropolis Firefighter passing by Pietro picking up propolis and listening to Papan American, and to a favela where the chief engineer meets him, who is a friend and has lost the use of his legs.
Now ain't that a co-winky-dink?
And on the next page, he takes him to the doctor so he can use his project on him. The project you insinuated you didn't know what it was for in the beginning. And what a surprise! Carlos's genes match up perfectly with what the project requires.
Now ain't that a co-winky-dink?
At least the sequence of events become more cohesive after that. We see the firefighter back on his feet, he goes to work again, and if you think that was fast, that's because I didn't say that there's a comment thrown in by the doctor saying he spent months rebuilding the project. And the way he says it, it seems he's referring to months after getting the documents, because he says they'd have the final answer. I really do not want a final solution from the Nazis on his hands. After we see the firefighters' headquarters, for some reason shown as a painted photo, we see the firefighters trying to put out a fire, and there's someone stuck on some rubble. As the others wouldn't be able to get to her in time, he decides to use his powers to save her. Yes, he's a superhero. But that's a cliche that works. If he looks less like a horror villain, it'd be good, but maybe he's just a fan of Scream.
What's up?
Having the occurrence occurred, the news about a savior spreads and connect him to the doctor's apartment when he's kidnapped. Right after saying to the chief engineer that his friend has to hide that he was a subject of the project. See what I mean? These would be easy things to fix, but... No, that's the worst part. I thought they'd capture the firefighter without knowing he had powers, or they'd become frequent enemies, but no one mentions him anymore. They kidnap the doctor's wife and daughter, forcing him to recreate the serum, and the firefighter goes to the beach, where he sees a guy flying on a hydroflight board and says he's going to fly. Spoilers, that's not going to make any sense in a moment. The chief engineer says what happened, so they go to rescue the doctor, while he says he was able to make 2 doses of the serum. And then he says his father died as Project 7's guinea pig. Didn't you say this project was from the previous century? Your father died pretty old then. Or are you going to say there was someone already working on the project before you, and you weren't the one who recreated it on those months of page turning? Or maybe someone went back in time to let RuPaul know about Cherry Pie and broke the timeline, killing McFly and Brian Griffin, but in not such an exploitative way. Fortunately, the end is much better. From here on, it's mostly action, so the problems lessen quite a bit. The end of the comic is a fight I am not going to spoil for you. Just to say it was really fun. We still have a few quality issues, both visual and script-wise, but nothing too problematic. And I would say it works. Maybe it needs to be better reviewed, but an initial story having these issues is forgivable. Not perfect, but fun enough if you don't mind simpler visuals. But here's some more jokey jokes anyways. It stores H2O and other compounds in molecular particles at subatomic levels. And how would he take molecules subatomically?
I just pulled out the bottom atom.
I even kind of understand other compounds because I assume you have to pressurize the water with something. High-tech Gallet helmet with augmented reality integrated to the internet.
E faz uma piadoca.
You can even check your Facebook while you're fighting crime. So, if he didn't know about the uniform, how did he know he was going to fly? I am the product of the greed and corruption you planted in me!
Num país com tanta violência!
Everyone cheered, as if it were a goal, this super heroic act. No, you're not wrong. Just to say nobody should care about soccer that much to begin with. Here he is. Thank you, masked firefighter.
Que agora eu tenho que dar de mamar a menina.
What worries me still is the attitude. I know it is valuing your work for how much difficulty you went through to get what you have, but the same way I have to let go of reviews or even full storylines simply because I couldn't get to a certain level of quality, it's not prejudice or in any way wrong to demand a product you buy be good. Just don't mistreat people. Judge the product for itself. In a country full of people trying to justify a horrible act, it's a great joy seeing something with a hero interested in the people. But this same people has every right to say this drawing isn't good when they so think. And only with better quality control by these same people can we have a country where favela isn't just another colorful set for a show, and in which your neighborhood being in a series isn't more interesting than the undeniable fact that most characters in it are selfish and ill-natured. Simplicity is not an excuse for mistakes. I can only hope that this stretching can go down so the quality can go up. But I would certainly recommend the first comic for the story. And the channel is already for free, so... And if you enjoyed it, hit the bell.
É Gluglumit.
É Gluglumit.
É Gluglumit.
Gluglumit. É Gluglumit.
I'm not really sure, but I think that helped accepting a reality where that door still go... That door? Where that's door... That's head, not a door. And now... It's time